So, you bought your first handgun. Now what? For whatever reason you bought it, I'm gonna give you some tips. Number one, we're gonna go over the 4 rules of gun safety for you beginners. And number 2, we're gonna go over how to make sure your weapon is safe inside your home, what to do before you handle your weapon. So this video is for absolute beginners who maybe bought your firearm, but you never really touched it and you don't know kind of where to start or what to do with it. Or maybe you're someone who has been thinking about picking up a firearm for the first time and you're a little nervous about it, a little apprehensive about it because you don't know how to handle a firearm, you're unfamiliar with firearms, and that's okay. My goal with this short little video is to try to help you feel more comfortable around your firearm. Guns are completely safe if you know what you're doing and if you just follow good safety practices. My son's toy is possessed. So if you follow good safety practices, guns are totally safe. Most all firearm accidents are completely user error. And there's a lot of people that you hear about, shooting themselves or when they're cleaning the gun or something like that. All of that is completely 100% avoidable if you build good safety practices. And that's what I kind of want to teach you right now. So this is just for you absolute beginners. Go on YouTube, watch as many of these videos as possible. Maybe you'll pick up something from someone else to kind of help you with becoming familiar with good safety habits. So before you ever pull the trigger or take your gun to the range, or even before you purchase your first firearm, these are good habits for you to get into, and these are things that are absolute must-dos if you are a firearm owner, especially if you're a new firearm owner. Before we even look at a gun, let's look at the 4 rules of gun safety. The first rule, treat every firearm like it's loaded. Even if you're 1,000% sure that the firearm that you put in your safe 6 months ago and you haven't touched it, even if you know it's not loaded, always assume that it is. Pretend that it is, act like it is. Before you pick up any firearm, any pistol, any rifle, any kind of firearm at all, always assume that it's loaded. Treat the weapon as if it's loaded and treat the weapon as if you touch the trigger, it's gonna go off. Now, why would you do that? Because it builds good safety habit. There was a family member of mine that I was talking with my brother-in-law about his pistol and my pistol, and I kind of had my pistol laying on the counter, and we would just kind of look at it. It was unloaded, it was safe and everything, and the slide was locked back and there was no magazine in it. But one of my family members just, as we were talking, just comes up and he just kind of, oh, hey, what's this? I could figure this out. And he picks it up and starts like looking down the barrel. So I had to like grab it from him and kind of treat this grown man like a child because he had zero respect for his firearm that he was handling. So that's the very first rule in firearm safety, is always assume every weapon is loaded without exception. The second rule, never put your finger on the trigger unless you have a target sighted in and you know what's behind your target. So until you're ready to shoot, don't even put your finger anywhere near the trigger. If you have a pistol, keep your finger here along the side. Any kind of firearm, you can grip it, keep your finger here off the trigger. Like, don't put it down here, put it up alongside. And if you're left-handed, of course, it would look like this, right? Up alongside, right on the side of the firearm. This firearm right now is loaded with 1 in the chamber, and as you can see, I'm not touching the trigger. It's totally safe. Guns cannot go off unless you squeeze the trigger, all right? And number 3, never point your weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy, all right? So that means having awareness of where you're pointing your gun, okay? Never point it at anything that you do not intend to throw a bullet at. Never point your gun at another person. Never point your gun in the direction of yourself. Like, don't grab a gun and look down the barrel like, what's down there? Never ever do that. Only point your gun at what you're about to shoot. And that's number 4. Know what your target is and know what's behind your target. Let's go over them again. Number 1, treat every weapon as if it's loaded. Number 2, never put your finger on the trigger unless you have a safe target sighted in. Number 3, never point your gun at anything that you don't want to shoot or put a bullet into. And number 4, know what's behind your target, know what you're shooting at. So those are the 4 basic overarching rules of gun safety. If you can remember those, you'll be fine. On the table in front of me is kind of a good representation of the 3 main types of handguns that you're gonna see, and probably in the style that you bought. You have your modern pistols, which are, most of them are gonna be a polymer or plastic lower with a metal slide. And these are your Glocks, your Sig Sauers, your CZs, your Smith & Wessons. And there's a bunch of these out there. But Glock and Sig Sauer are probably the 2 most popular, and probably Smith & Wesson right behind them. But this is a Glock 19. This is probably the most popular handgun in the world. You probably have one of these. This is a lot of people's first gun, is the Glock 19, because it's a great size. It conceals well, it has a ton of accessories, and it's easy to shoot and easy to learn on. However, a lot of people don't like these pistols, especially first-time gun owners, because there's no manual safety back here. The safety is actually inside the trigger group, so you can't, this gun will not go off unless you pull the trigger all the way back to the rear. Okay, so you can see the first thing you do to make sure your weapon is clear is you hit your magazine release. That's how you unload and load the weapon. All right, is this magazine release right here, right? On the 1911, all right, it's right here, right? So you press that button, it drops the magazine out. All right, now the magazine's out, okay, but that doesn't mean this weapon is safe. That doesn't mean that this weapon is empty. There's one more place we have to check, okay? Even though here's the magazine, you see rounds are in it, so it was loaded. But before we go putting our finger on the trigger or doing anything like taking apart to clean it or anything like that, or just doing dry fire practice, rack the slide back. You do that by just grabbing the sides of the slide, and notice where my finger is off the trigger, right? You grab the rear of the slide up here, up at the top, not this plastic part, but this metal part, again with my finger off the trigger, and I'm just gonna pull the slide back, pull it back. Okay, you can see now that the chamber is empty. You can do a visual inspection, okay? All right, and you just rack the slide back a couple times, and don't be gentle with these things. Like some people like to slowly pull it back. These things are meant to, rack them. You're not gonna hurt them, right? Just rack them and they're gonna be fine. They're meant to take a pounding. They're meant to take abuse. All modern pistols are really well made, so they're not gonna break. So you can be super rough and aggressive, and it's not gonna hurt it. They're designed to do that. How do I load it? What do I do? I've never shot it before. So to load your weapon, you would take a loaded magazine. Obviously, the tip of the bullet faces towards the barrel. The barrel is here, right? That's where the bullet comes out. Pew, pew, pew. You would load the magazine with the bullets facing outward, slam it in, right? Don't barely put it in, because you'll go to pick your gun up and magazine's gonna fall out. So really slam that thing in there. All right, you're not gonna hurt it. So just take it, slam it in there nice and aggressive, right? It's not gonna come out. You're not gonna hurt it. You can slam it as much as you want to. You're not gonna hurt it, okay? So really forcefully guide the magazine in, slam it, all right? To chamber around, because right now if I pull this trigger, nothing would happen, okay? Even with the magazine in, nothing would happen, because there is no bullet in the chamber. In order to chamber around, I do the same thing. I take the slide and I'm gonna rack it back and I'm gonna let go. All right, so it's gonna, just like that, and now a round is chambered. How do we know that? Well, you can do, so if you were to walk on this weapon right now, it is hot, and I know it's hot, and hot means that it's loaded with a magazine, and a round in the chamber, and if I pull that trigger, it's gonna go bang. That's what hot means, right? When you say someone, this gun is hot, that's what it means. It's ready to go. All right, how would I make sure, like if I left it like this, let's say I put it in my safe and I'm a first-time user and I just left it there, and crap, I don't remember if I put a round in the chamber or not, because my gun's been in my safe for, you know, a couple months and I hadn't taken it out. Crap, what do? Same process. Magazine comes out, always empty the magazine first. Magazine is out, and then you would rack the slide, and out comes the round. It's gonna eject it out automatically. You want to make sure that there is no more ammunition in the gun, so you would rack it again. All right, to do a check, a visual inspection, if I can speak, and this applies to most every firearm. There's going to be some kind of slide lock. You push it up as you pull the slide back, and then release it, and that's going to hold the slide open. And that way you can do a visual inspection of, you can even get your finger in there, and there's no ammunition in there. You can look down. Don't look down the barrel. That's a bad habit to get into. Just kind of look in the chamber. You can clearly see that there is no bullet in the chamber. So this gun is now safe. Same thing with any 1911 or hammer fired style metal frame gun. You would hit the magazine release, same thing, and rack the slide. Now, if you have a manual safety like this one does, if you were to go to rack the slide, nothing would happen, because what happens is the safety locks the slide in place so it can no longer move. Pick the weapon up, finger off the trigger, not pointing it at anyone ever. Hit that button, drops the magazine, and I'm gonna rack it to make sure there's nothing in there. And the slide release on this one is right here on 1911. You would just push it up, and there it is. Now you can do a visual inspection. You can see there's nothing in that very large chamber, nothing in the barrel. And you're good to go. Now you know the weapon is safe. If you have a gun with a manual safety like this, a good habit to get into is once you start aiming your gun, whether you're at a range or it's called sweeping the safety. So safety's on. As I'm bringing it up to aim, I'm pushing the safety down. When I'm done shooting and the slide is locked back, and I rack it, magazine's empty, I put the safety back on. But this is a 1911. This is probably the most popular handgun in the world. A lot of people love the 1911 because of its ergonomics. It feels phenomenal to hold. The grip is really nice. The grip angle is really good. It's got probably the best trigger of any gun ever made, ever does the 1911. All 1911 triggers are really nice. We live in a time where there are a lot of nice handguns to choose from. So, hey, some people, they put their hands on the Glock and they don't like it. Feels weird to them. The angle on a Glock grip is very aggressive as compared to a 1911, which is more vertical. The Glock is more of an aggressive angle. You see that? There's only a handful of bad gun manufacturers out there. Most of them are going to be pretty good and pretty reputable, and most of them have really good warranties. So if you ever have an issue with your gun, most companies will stand by their product and fix it for you. The last kind of gun is going to be a wheel gun, okay? Or a revolver. A revolver is an extremely reliable kind of handgun, but there's no, well, there might be safety on some of them, but typically revolvers don't come with safety. There might be a couple out there that have them. In fact, I think I picked up some kind of smaller snub nose that had one, but this is actually not the safety. This is your catch, and it releases the wheel, okay? And this gun is loaded. As you can see, it has rounds in the wheel. All right, this is a snub nose revolver. So how do you unload a revolver? Well, by finding the release, pushing it down or forward, and the wheel will pop out. And then you just simply turn your gun up and let gravity do the rest. And now you can visually see the wheel is empty. Now, with revolvers, a lot of people like to do hate doing this and then flicking it like you see in the movies. While it is cool, it can screw up the timing in your wheel, and can cause things to get off center and you start having some problems. So I would stay away from doing that. We are empty and we are clear here. As you can see, all 5 cylinders are empty. Revolvers can be there's the double action, so you have the first single action with a longer aggressive. You see the wheel come around there and then the gun goes off, or you can cock the hammer, and when you do this, that you barely touch that trigger, it's going to go off. See how far back the trigger is? All you need to do is barely touch it and it's going off. To load a revolver, you simply do the opposite. You just load it like that. Of course, the bullet tip's facing forward, okay? And notice how I'm holding it. I got I don't have my finger in front of the barrel. I've kind of got the gun resting, the frame resting in the palm of my hand, barrel facing down and away from people. So that way, if for some reason it does go off, I'm not gonna have my hand in front of the barrel. So, all right, go, load it. Again, just being conscious of the barrel and the trigger. There's 2 things you gotta remember. And then we just shut it, and it's ready to go. Okay. And then you would just squeeze the trigger. Now it comes around. So let's say you have it loaded, and I'm gonna unload it because I don't really like doing this, but you can, if you have the hammer cocked, you can uncock it, okay? Now, crap, if my gun is loaded, now this is not loaded, but as you can see, it's all the bullets here. What if you get to this point, but you didn't mean to shoot it? I've pressed the hammer down. Now what do I do? How do I not shoot this gun at this point? So basically you take your thumb, put it on the hammer, you're gonna squeeze and hold the trigger, all right, and then as it's coming up, you're gonna let off of both, all right, fingers of trigger, and that resets the trigger, okay? Just like that. So I cock this hammer, there again, just pull the hammer up, and you're good to go. Hammer's back, oh crap. Now don't do that in reverse order, because if you pull the trigger first, it's gonna go off. So put your thumb on the hammer first, and then bring the hammer up with your thumb, let it up slowly, and then let the trigger out. Because the revolver cannot go off unless the hammer strikes. So again, put pressure on the hammer first, then hold the trigger all the way back. There you go. So if you did it fast, it would kind of look like that. And of course, you would just double check. And there you go. So that's kind of the basics of the 3 main type of handguns that you're gonna see. Again, the polymer frame, and this is just represented by Glock. The metal single double action, which is represented by the classic 1911. And the revolver represented by the Smith & Wesson snub nose. I think these are probably the 3 most famous gun types ever made. So again, treat every gun like it's loaded. Never point your gun at anything you don't want to put a bullet through. Keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot and have a target sighted in. And number 4, always know what's behind your target, what's around you, so that you don't shoot something you're not supposed to. It's really that simple. And really that just comes down to muzzle awareness, right? Where you put your barrel, and keeping your finger off the trigger. Always like this. Always grab a firearm like this. All of this is just easy, common sense stuff. Don't point the gun at anything I don't want to shoot. Keep my finger off the trigger till I'm really ready to shoot. I mean, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to help. Again, just practice good safety. Just continually, go through the habits of picking up your gun and making sure it's safe. Magazine out first. Check your chamber. Safety on. And now you can store it. You can put it in a safe. Some people like a gun safe. I have a little one at home, so we have a bedside safe that has a code that's quick to access. Otherwise, I have a larger safe for all my firearms to go in during the day that's locked up. So that's it. Just use common sense. Keep your fingers off the trigger. Keep the barrel pointed away from people, down in the safe direction, and you'll be totally safe. Firearms are really not that hard to understand and keep safe. If you have any more questions, please let me know. Thanks a lot. Hope this has been helpful. And remember to always check your chambers, drop your magazines, and keep your fingers off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Be safe out there.